Welcome to the What's Happening Birmingham video podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Jarvis Escott with What's Happening Birmingham. I'm back again with my good friend, Richard Friedman. He's the former executive director of the Birmingham Jewish Federation. Richard, how are you doing today?
I am good, Jarvis. I hope you're doing well as well.
Yes. So if you all saw the previous interview I did with him, we talked about a lot of things that's going on with the Israel and the Hamas situation out in the Middle East. But I wanted to, which was the main reason also I wanted to bring him on, was we want to talk about, something that's always been going on. I wouldn't say now to forever time, is anti-Semitism. And especially if you're just a casual person that just watch TV or you be on the internet, you hear a lot of different terms, and which I like to call it slang, that people say when they talk about these topics. So I want to bring him back on. He's an expert. Richard, for people who didn't see the previous segment, can you just give like a quick bio about yourself?
Sure. I'm Richard Friedman. I was executive director of the Birmingham Jewish Federation for 37 years. I've been to Israel 55 times. I've also had a long career in journalism. I was a City Hall reporter and Metro editor at the Birmingham News. I won several awards for reporting, including 2 from Alabama Associated Press. I've taught journalism at 2 schools, University of Maryland and Birmingham Southern College. And in semi-retirement, not only have I been educating people about the current conflict, both in the Middle East and the growing anti-Semitism, but I've also gone back to journalism. I am associate editor of 2 magazines based here, one Southern Jewish Life and the other Israel Insight. So I keep busy. I just try to make it productively busy.
Yes. So if you've been watching, like you said, this conflict the last few months since it happened in October 7, just throughout last couple of years, you hear a lot of different words thrown out. I like to say just terms. The first thing I guess I want to ask you is, what's the definition of like anti-Semitism?
Great. So anti-Semitism, it's a bit of a strange word, and you might not know what it means unless you know what it means. It has its origin in Germany in the, I believe it was the 1800s, as a way to express negative attitudes toward Jewish people who originally were Semitic people, but it's been used more broadly since then, and it's also kind of been, I guess the word might be retrofitted to all the history that came before that. So that's a fingernail snapshot of the root of the word, but more pertinently is its meaning today as widely understood. And anti-Semitism means hostility and hatred toward Jews, Jewish institutions, and the world's only majority Jewish country, which is Israel.
Okay. And the next term I hear a lot is Zionism. What does that mean?
Sure. Zionism, and I appreciate these questions so much, Jarvis. Zionism, in short, and I'll give you a little bit more detail, is the national liberation movement of the Jewish people. What it is, in essence, is a belief that the Jewish people have a right to an independent, sovereign country on some portion of their biblical homeland. And the word Zion comes from Mount Zion, which is one of the hills going back to biblical times in Jerusalem. So when you hear Zionism, what it is it's a movement by the Jewish people and their allies that believes again, that the Jewish people have a historical, legal, political right to a majority Jewish state on some portion of their ancient biblical homeland. There are those out there who claim it's racism, who claims it's colonialism. It is none of those things.
Okay.
And that's what Zionism is.
All right. And then the next term I hear a lot, especially been hearing it now, is Free Palestine. Where does that term come from?
Well, Free Palestine, it's an interesting term. There are many who believe that Free Palestine means to eradicate and dismantle the state of Israel, because that is on land that those who are against the state of Israel see as Palestinian land. There are others who say, no, what it means is that those people who live in the Palestinian areas deserve full rights and full freedoms. So it's a little bit of a phrase that is mainly used in antagonistic ways toward Israel, but also there are others, when asked, who couch it a little differently.
Okay, and then a term they throw out a lot too is I've heard people say from the river to the sea. What does that mean as well?
From the river to the sea. Well, it's interesting, Jarvis, and I so appreciate you and your questions. Uh, I've seen video after video, people marching from the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. And then the reporter says to them, well, what river? And they really have no idea. Or they say, what sea? And they might say, I don't know, the Atlantic Ocean, which is unsafe. It would be laughable if it weren't so serious, but it's disturbing to see people so uninformed taking these strident positions on, quite frankly, what are life and death issues to the Jewish people. But the phrase from the river to the sea has come to be widely understood as from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, Palestine will be free. What that means, if you know the geography and the map, that what is there from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea is the state of Israel. So it's a implicit or even to some an explicit call for the destruction of the state of Israel.
Oh, wow. So can somebody be, and this is the thing, I guess, I kind of talked to you when we first originally met, and
Sure.
also the conversations we've been having. Can somebody, okay, I hope I phrased this question right. Can somebody be anti-Semitic without, okay, if somebody's critical of Israel, does that make them anti-Semitic? That's the best.
Right. You have phrased it perfectly. I'm glad you've asked that. Since October 7th, I've probably interacted with, spoken to in different arenas, close to 1,000 people. And that's the most frequently asked question. Can someone be critical of Israel without being anti-Semitic? It's a very interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
The answer is yes. People certainly can be critical of Israel without being anti-Semitic. And that is when the criticism is directed toward policies of the Israeli government with which they disagree. Israelis themselves disagree with the policies of their government. Israel's a very healthy and vibrant democracy, and the right of citizens, as well as anybody, to criticize actions and policies of government in power, that is not anti-Semitic. What is anti-Semitic is when people take positions that deny the right of Israel to exist, deny the right of the Jewish people to have an independent sovereign country on 1 inch of their biblical homeland, deny the right of the Jewish people to defend themselves when they are attacked, to single out Israel for criticism and abuse and attacks in a way that they would never dream of singling out any other country, including the country in which they live. Those are indicators of anti-Semitism because they're applying a different standard to Jews and the Jewish state, always to the detriment of the Jews and the Jewish state. There's another kind of anti-Semitism, and that is when people post things on social media, march, have placards, yell things, all of them negative toward Israel and Jews, without understanding what it is they're even talking about. And they're either unable or unwilling to inform themselves, and they want to create a ruckus or purport to be authoritative on life and death issues to the Jewish people. That's a marginalization of Jewish life. Now, the interesting thing, Jarvis, because I've thought a lot about this, and I've thought a lot about over the years, have some experience dealing with these issues, and I've particularly thought about it since October 7th.
Mhm.
That is, I believe there are 2 kinds of anti-Semitism. Number one is where it's very intentional. For example, if the KKK was marching in front of a synagogue, that is intentional hatred and hostility toward Jews. But there's a more subtle kind, which I call the unintentional, where people may say things, make judgments, do things that they don't realize have anti-Semitic implications because they've never thought about it and never been educated about it. So I'll give you an example and I'll stop here. As you and I have talked, there are parallels with racism. I think in our first cup of coffee, we talked about this, where I said that my belief is there's intentional racism. It's very easy to spot. If the Ku Klux Klan demonstrates outside of Miles College, well, that's pretty easy to spot as intentional racism. But then there's unintentional racism without the person even realizing it. I think we call these microaggressions, maybe that's the term today, where I've been told that this happens. Black women will walk into a women's clothing store, and sometimes the sales help will look through them as if they were invisible or a little bit of suspicion or won't wait on them. And to me, that if you said to that salesperson, I think you're racist. Oh, no, not me. They're behaving in a way that manifests racism. So to circle back, it's a long answer. I feel strongly about it, and it's important to educate people about it. But no, all criticism, if it's fair and square within the boundaries of the ways in which you'd criticize other countries, including your own, then that's not anti-Semitism. If it singles out the world's only majority country in a distinct and always negative way, then without the person perhaps even realizing it, it's a manifestation of anti-Semitism.
Okay, so it's like if someone is watching, like they saw our previous interview, and then I think, like I said, if I didn't never sit down with you, to be bluntly honest, I probably would have not known a lot of these different terms or even the history of it. what can the public, when you're suggesting, maybe I'm making a big question or a big ask, what the viewer watching this, what are some things we can do to fight this anti-Semitism that's going on right now?
Sure. Well, number one, it's to understand it and be aware of it. Number two, it's just like racism. When we hear a racist comment in the workplace, we have a choice. We have a choice to just sit there and do nothing, or we have a choice to say, hey, wait a minute. Let's think about what you just said and take the person a little deeper into the comment and say, I have come to learn that what you've just expressed is a form of anti-Semitism. Let me explain why. And over the course of my career, I've been in instances where people have made racist comments. And, we're never quite prepared for what's going to come out of other people's mouths. We're always caught a little off guard. You have to sort of be pre-wired to think about it and know how to react. But I subscribe to what I call the, hey, wait a minute strategy. And there are a lot of ways to do that, to say, hey, wait a minute. We're good friends. You're a thoughtful person. We're having a nice conversation, but let me share a perspective with you that might help you going forward. Okay? Part of it's the skill in communicating to the person so they understand. Now, another way to combat anti-Semitism, if you see it and it's clear and it's explicit, like the KKK, God forbid, marching at Miles College, or Nazis in front of Temple Manuel, then to visibly and affirmatively align yourself with the institution that's being attacked. Call the temple and say, you don't know me, but I'm very concerned about what happened. Or call Miles College or call whomever. Say, look, I'm an ally. I'm an ally. And I will stand with you literally and figuratively against this hate. So there are all sorts of things that people can do. And sadly, and I don't have to tell you this as a Black man, sadly, we have a model already in this country, a paradigm, because there have been so many heinous and outrageous attacks against the Black community that we have a model of how to stand with another community that is under attack. And I think within that are all sorts of things that people can do.
Yeah, and I'll go even further too and tell you, I hope I pronounced right. Visit the Levitt Jewish Community Center.
I'm really proud of you.
Yeah, thanks.
But wait a minute, I didn't say you got it right.
Okay.
I'm really proud because this, in some shape or form, is your fourth conversation. One with the director of the Jewish Community Center, one with me and the director of Jewish Life, and two with me. And you almost have it. You almost have it.
Okay.
Now it's tricky. It's tricky, and I'll tell you why it's tricky. Because if you read it, Levite, it reads it's Levite. It reads Levite. And many people are familiar with that word, that term from the Bible. But the pronunciation here is Levit. And as I say, here's a good way to remember. It's like love it, but Lev. Okay, Valentine's Day is coming up, so it's a good practice. It's like love it, but Levit. And if you were spelling it phonetically, you would spell it Levit. But you're close. 4 or 5 minute conversations, you're going to be close.
Okay. But I think that if they visit the center, visit the Alabama Holocaust, is it Alabama Holocaust? I'm actually going to
Alabama Holocaust Education Center.
Center. I think as well, and in the previous conversation me and you had too, it's like sometimes we have to go beyond what we're taught in school to really be truly educated and informed about a topic.
Absolutely. I'll give you a personal experience. Not until I retired.
Mm.
Let me phrase it a little differently.
Mm-hmm.
I've always had Black colleagues with whom I intersected and worked with, but not until I retired have I had the time and space to develop new friendships. And as it's happened, 3 or 4 of the best friendships I've developed are with people who are Black. And what that has done for me is it's opened my eyes to so many things that I had not really thought about. It has taken me into a deeper understanding of the world in which they live, and it has really educated me in a way that I'm so grateful for. And you're one of those friendships. So I'll tell you a story which always sticks with me. Going back a while, in 1979, probably before most of our listeners were even around, I was a reporter for the Birmingham News.
Okay.
I was covering Richard Arrington's first run for mayor.
Okay.
And this was a big turning point because Birmingham had never had a Black mayor. It was a shift in political power. And one of the things I did, and I love this kind of story, I was just out on the campaign trail with him, he and we were in his car together, and we go different places. And he was a councilman at the time. I said, so Councilman Arrington, I said, let me ask you a question. It's 1979. I said, is it possible for a white person to understand what it's like to be a Black person in Birmingham? And he said, no. He said, it's not possible. He said, but what it is possible is to do your very best to learn about that experience so that you can be more attuned to it and be an ally. And that's something I've always carried with me. And I say that to people who now, like yourself, are reaching out to the Jewish community. And the last point is one of the most formative friendships that I've developed over the last 4 years that has had a tremendous impact on me is with a young woman who was the SGA president at Miles College, who I became involved with in a joint journalism internship between Southern Jewish Life, the Birmingham Times, and Miles College, which, she says I've become a mentor to her. And I say, no, you've become a mentor to me. So yes, it's getting out of that comfort zone if you want a better society. Look, America's civic health is eroding. It's eroding by the day. And if you want to build a better society, an important part of it is getting out of your comfort zone, listening to people who come from different kinds of backgrounds, have different kinds of perspectives. When you have a differing viewpoint, it doesn't mean you always have to agree, but try to engage in dialogue that moves you to a more enlightened place. That's the best hope for building a more productive and harmonious society. So I commend you because it's very clear, certainly in my interaction with you, you're striving to do just that for your listeners and viewers through your podcast.
Yeah, and I think two things as you was speaking that us people in society too, we can't be afraid to say I don't know and I'm sorry. And I feel like a lot of times people, there's one set, there's ignorance, which sometimes people can be ignorant of a topic because of their life experience.
Right.
And based on perceptions and stereotypes, and kind of like we say, when a person, like they come in the store and a person just look at them, that if that's what they was raised.
Right.
But I think it reaches a point, I would say, as you get into an adult age, that if you see things right and wrong and different life experiences, it opens you up to different things and have you think different perspectives.
Look, picking up on that, So I had a long career in the nonprofit world. I was executive director of the Birmingham Jewish Federation for 37 years. And one of the things I do now, I have the opportunity to consult with nonprofits and nonprofit executives. And one of the things I teach them is that if you want to be a great leader, and this applies to anybody in anything they're doing where they have influence, certainly you have a substantial amount of influence. I always say, if you want to be a great leader, in my judgment, it takes three things. I say, number one, vision. You've got to have a vision of the way you would like things to be and what you're trying to achieve. Number two is passion. You've got to have passion for what you believe in and what you're trying to achieve, and have the motivation to energize it and breathe life into it. So vision number one, passion number two. But the most important, in my judgment, totally relevant to the conversation, the third one is compassion. You've got to have compassion for other points of view, other perspectives, other people who think differently. And you've got to be willing enough to listen to their life experiences and strive to understand how they arrived at where they are. And I think that's an enlargement of the very thing that you just said a few minutes ago. And to me, those, I can teach a course in leadership in 3 words. And I just did it. To me, it's always been vision, passion, and compassion.
Yeah, I like that. I never thought of it like that. Well, Richard, I want to thank you for coming on. Previous segments for it. I hope out of this situation that, well, let me say a couple things. I hope for peace over there in Israel. 2, I hope that there is a possible ceasefire and the hostages real soon.
Yeah, I mean, everyone, if you're a person of faith, keep praying. If you're a person who cares about the interests of our country, stay attuned to this conflict, because Israel is one of our greatest allies in the world, and certainly our best and most reliable ally in the Middle East. And if Israel, God forbid, is destabilized or destroyed, that's going to be a devastating blow to our national interests. And, just stay tuned and stay tuned in. But I've got to give a shout out to you as we sign off. I'm so grateful our paths have crossed. I think that you have such a terrific mind, the way in which you think about things, and you reflect the very things that I just said about leadership. And I find your questions so informed and engaging. You have a great way of going about asking tough questions in a compassionate way that creates a context. So it's really been a privilege to intersect like this. And last point, the first thing I'm going to do when we get off this Zoom, this podcast, you know what it is, Jarvis?
What's that?
It's going to be to text you to set up our next cup of coffee.
Okay. Okay. It's all. I appreciate that. But I want to thank you as well, because your team, everybody opened their arms. Want to thank my friend Stacy for it. And it just started from like I tell people, a casual conversation, and she making the connection. So I really hope, with this conversation, that it will lead to more conversations with people of different faiths, different races, to kind of sit down, because at the end of the day, we all need each other.
Sure. And I'm happy to speak to groups, large or small. If anyone finds the kinds of things that I've said in this series to be of value, to be informative, if they're interested in learning more, I'd welcome that, because it would give me an opportunity to learn. Just reach out to me through Jarvis. He has all my contact info. And to those who've been listening, I thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all for watching. Please check out What's Happening Birmingham for more information, for more interviews. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and the audio version of this will be ready real soon on Apple Podcasts. Thank you all again. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching the What's Happening Birmingham video podcast. Please check out our website, app, or subscribe to our YouTube channel for the latest videos today.